They say he stood alone in the rain. No crown, no army, no applause, just the sound of thunder over a broken empire. Years earlier, Napoleon Bonaparte had marched through Europe like a storm itself, untouchable, unstoppable. He built an empire so vast that even the weather seemed to bow to him. But when defeat came, his generals scattered, his allies vanished, and his people, the same ones who once screamed his name, refused to even meet his eyes. He was exiled to a small island called Elba, and one morning, it rained. The guards watched him walk outside with an old umbrella. He stood there for hours, staring at the sea, drenched, silent. Some say he wasn't looking at the waves. He was looking at his own reflection. The man who once conquered the world and forgot the very things that built him, the alliances, the gratitude, the humility, all left outside, saying they were wet. History repeats that mistake every day. We rise, we win, and then we forget. So let me ask you, what have you left outside because it doesn't look shiny anymore? What's drying at your doorstep while you're busy pretending it never saved you? Stay till the end, because what comes next might just remind you what the rain was really trying to teach. It started after the rain. The streets still smelled of earth and electricity. Drops clung to the edges of roofs, sliding down one by one, the sky slowly drying its tears. And outside, someone had left their umbrella by the door. They said it was wet. That's all. Just that. It's wet. A simple reason, almost logical. But if you look closer, that moment hides the entire map of human behavior. Because that umbrella wasn't broken. It wasn't useless. It had just done its job. It protected them through the storm, and when the storm passed, it became an inconvenience. We do this more often than we realize. We abandon the very things that carried us through our darkest hours. The habits, people, principles, and beliefs that once sheltered us the moment the rain stops, we call them wet. We put them outside. We forget what they meant. Here's the thing, storms end. But gratitude should not. Yet most people only love what saves them until they are safe. Think about it. How many friendships have you watched vanish after success arrived? How many mentors have been left behind once their advice worked? How many prayers go unanswered not because the divine was silent, but because we stopped listening after the rain stopped falling? The umbrella is more than a tool. It's a mirror. It shows how quickly humans switch from humility to pride. When the sky was roaring, we clung to it. When fear filled our lungs, we whispered thank you for its cover. But the moment light returned, we wanted to look dry, presentable, untouched by the storm. So we left it behind. This is where illusion begins. The illusion that strength means standing alone, that independence means rejecting what helped you, that the ones who need nothing are somehow higher than those who once leaned on something. But real independence isn't forgetting where you came from. It's remembering and still choosing growth. Because without memory, every rise becomes another fall waiting to happen. Look at the stories buried in history. Napoleon, the man who conquered Europe, forgot the alliances that built his empire. He dismissed them when the rain stopped, when victory made him feel untouchable. And soon, those same allies watched the clouds gather again. But this time, for him. Or think of Nikola Tesla, the genius who electrified the world. He too built an umbrella for humanity. But society called it too wet, too strange, too ahead of its time. They left him in the storm he once shielded them from. The protector became the abandoned. And that's the truth about human gratitude. It's seasonal. It lasts only until comfort returns. You might see it in your own life. The colleague who needed you when the project was drowning but forgot you once the spotlight came. The friend who clung to you during heartbreak but disappeared when they healed. Or maybe it's something deeper. Maybe you have done it too. Left your own discipline outside because it felt too heavy now. Left your humility outside because success made you believe you no longer need to bow. Left your empathy outside because the world called it weakness. We all have that umbrella, that one thing we left at the door after the storm. For some, it was faith. For others, self-respect. For many, it was kindness. You protected it once. and it protected you back. But now it's dripping, inconvenient, old-fashioned, so you let it sit outside, slowly drying, slowly dying. Here's what most people never realize. The storm doesn't always announce its return. It doesn't send a message before arriving again, and when it does, you'll rush out searching for that umbrella you once left behind. But by then, it's brittle, torn, gone. That's how life humbles us. It gives us warmth, then takes it away not as punishment, but as a reminder. A reminder that gratitude and awareness are the only permanent shelters. Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's undefeated swordsman, once said, "If you know the way broadly, you will see it in everything." He meant that truth hides in simple things, in rain, in silence, in the smallest gestures we ignore. Those who master themselves see wisdom not in grand temples, but in forgotten umbrellas. And maybe that's the test to notice. To stop moving so fast that we forget the objects, the people, the moments that shaped us. Because everything you abandon returns as a lesson. The ignored becomes the inevitable. The unthanked becomes the unforgettable. We live in an age of convenience where memory fades faster than pain. We want new tools, new relationships, new philosophies, forgetting that wisdom doesn't need to be new to be powerful. It just needs to be remembered. Here's the quiet truth. What you discard after victory reveals who you really are, not what you hold during defeat. Everyone clings to something when the sky falls: faith, love, hope, another person. But only a few keep holding it when the sun rises again. That's the test of character. Not how you survive storms, but how you treat the shelter once the sky clears. The umbrella in this story isn't a prop. It's a philosophy. It's loyalty. It's discipline. It's the unseen protector, the part of you that stays calm when everything else collapses. Don't leave it outside. Don't call it wet. Pick it up. Keep it close, because the rain always returns. And when it does, it won't wait for you to remember. Why do we do this? Why do we turn away from what once saved us? Why do we abandon the umbrella that kept us dry the moment the storm passes? The answer isn't in logic. It is buried deep inside the human psyche, in that hidden corner where pride and fear share the same room. We want to believe we survived because of us, not because of something or someone that helped. The ego doesn't like sharing credit. It wants to stand alone on the mountain and say, "I did this." That's why people forget gratitude so easily. It's not memory loss, it's pride management. We fear dependence more than defeat. Because dependence reminds us we were once vulnerable. And nothing terrifies a man's ego more than remembering the days he wasn't in control. Look at history. It's written by people who built empires and then destroyed themselves for this very reason. Take Napoleon Bonaparte. He rose by understanding human nature, alliances, morale, loyalty. But when he started believing he was the empire, not the servant of it, the same brilliance that lifted him became the fire that burned him. He abandoned the alliances that sheltered him. He left the umbrella at the door. Or look at Cleopatra, a queen who mastered power, persuasion, and politics, yet fell when she believed her influence was unshakable. She forgot that charm and wisdom were her true shelter, not the men she conquered. She mistook control for connection. We do this in smaller ways every day. We forget the late nights, the failures, the mentors, the self-discipline that once built our strength. When life stabilizes, we slowly trade reflection for routine. We call it moving on. But in truth, it's forgetting. Here's the thing. Forgetting is the easiest way to feel powerful. If you don't remember who helped you, you can pretend you never needed help. In the workplace, this shows up as betrayal disguised as ambition. A young professional gets promoted, leaves behind the team that once covered for their mistakes, and suddenly looks down on the same people who shielded them. Until one day, a new storm comes, a failed deal, a public mistake, and suddenly they're alone. Because what you abandon emotionally always abandons you physically later. In relationships, it's the same. We love people when they make us feel needed. But the moment they remind us of who we were during our storms, we distance ourselves. We want the version of us that is strong, not the one who was trembling and afraid. And so we detach. We label the very love that healed us as too emotional. We call the patience that saved us too soft. We start mistaking peace for boredom and chaos for passion. It's not that we grow apart, it's that we outgrow gratitude. Psychologically, this behavior is called selective disassociation. It's when your mind detaches from anything that reminds you of past vulnerability. It's a defense mechanism, but also a trap, because by rejecting the past, you reject the foundation that built your strength. Take Niccolò Machiavelli. He served princes, observed power, and wrote The Prince not as a guide for cruelty, but as a mirror for self-deception. He understood that power blinds the mind to its roots. Every ruler starts by protecting his people. Then, slowly, he believes the people exist to protect him. That's how kingdoms fall. That's how marriages collapse. That's how the character dies. The moment you start believing you don't need the umbrella, you've already forgotten the sky has no loyalty. Let's bring this closer. Think about your own life, the times you swore you'd never forget the people who helped you through your darkest hours. Where are they now? Still near? Or have you told yourself you're too busy, too different, too evolved? Growth without gratitude is a kind of amnesia. It makes you successful but hollow. You'll have trophies but no stories, comfort but no peace. And yet this isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Because once you see this pattern in yourself, you start noticing it everywhere. You notice it in leaders who stop listening once they win elections, in companies that abandon their loyal employees for short-term profit, in artists who forget their roots once fame arrives. The same psychology drives at all the rejection of our protectors once protection feels unnecessary. But here's where it gets interesting. The mind doesn't actually want to destroy what saved it. It just wants to feel independent. It wants to rewrite the story where it's not the rescued, it's the hero. That's why we reframe our past. We say things like, I was always strong, I didn't need anyone, I knew I'd make it. It's comforting but false. Because real strength isn't rewriting your past to erase help. It's accepting that you needed it and still rose. The umbrella was wet, yes, but that wetness was proof of its service, proof that it stood between you and the storm. To call it useless after that is arrogance disguised as progress. And the worst part? We even do this to ourselves. We abandon our own inner protectors, our discipline, our stillness, our moral compass the moment things get easier. We say, I don't need to meditate anymore, I'm calm now. I don't need to budget anymore, I'm earning more. I don't need to read anymore, I already know enough. That's how decay begins quietly, politely, under the illusion of comfort. Epictetus warned about this. He said, circumstances don't make the man, they reveal him. When things get easy, they don't strengthen you, they expose you. Because ease doesn't build muscle, resistance does, and that's the paradox. The same storm you hated was the very thing keeping you alive, alert, humble. Without it, you forget. Without it, you soften. So maybe the reason life keeps giving us storms isn't cruelty. Maybe it's mercy. Maybe it is the universe reminding us to hold the umbrella tight, not because the rain is bad, but because remembering is sacred. That's what separates those who grow from those who repeat. One learns to thank the storm. The other just waits for the next one. Forgetting looks harmless at first. It wears a clean face. It smiles and says, you've moved on. But what it really means is that something inside you has begun to rot quietly. When gratitude dies, memory follows. And when memory fades, direction goes with it. Because purpose is nothing more than memory with a heartbeat, the remembrance of why you began. Let's strip this down. The mind survives through stories. When you erase the parts where you were helped, humbled, or broken, the story becomes fiction. And fiction can't guide you through real storms. Look around any empire that fell. The pattern is identical. A kingdom forgets the hunger that built it. An artist forgets the loneliness that fueled creation. A generation forgets the sacrifices that gave it comfort. And so decay starts not from enemies outside, but from amnesia within. Take Emperor Augustus. He built Rome's golden age, yet the generations that followed drowned in their own luxury. They forgot what discipline and duty meant. By the time Nero played his music while the city burned, Rome had already forgotten why it existed. The fall didn't come from invasion. It came from forgetting the pain that once kept them vigilant. Or Nikola Tesla. He spent his life giving light to the world, but society forgot him the moment his inventions no longer amused investors. They took the glow and abandoned the man. Civilization still runs on his brilliance, but his final years were spent feeding pigeons and memories. That's the cost of collective forgetfulness, progress without honor. In personal life, the same tragedy repeats in smaller rooms. A child forgets the sacrifices of parents once success arrives. A partner forgets the love that endured their chaos once peace returns. A worker forgets the mentors who taught them to stand tall once they find a higher floor. It's not evil, it's blindness. But blindness doesn't stop the consequences. Because when gratitude dies, entitlement is born. And entitlement always destroys what gratitude built. Think of it like fire. Gratitude warms. Entitlement burns. The person who once said, "I'm lucky to have this," begins to whisper, "I deserve better." And that whisper grows until it drowns the sound of humility. Soon every blessing looks small. Every opportunity feels unfair. Every relationship becomes a transaction. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation, the brain's tendency to normalize what once felt miraculous. That's why new cars lose their magic in 3 months. That's why promotions feel flat after a week. That's why people pray for peace, then call it boredom when they finally get it. The moment you stop seeing wonder in what you already have, you start hunting storms to feel alive again. That's the sickness of the age. People manufacturing chaos because they've forgotten gratitude. In companies, you'll see it when founders forget the early hunger that made them creative. They chase expansion instead of excellence, investors instead of ideas. And slowly, what was once the purpose becomes a product. Look at once mighty corporations now empty of spirit. They died not of competition, but of forgetting what they stood for. History repeats the warning. Hammurabi built one of the first legal codes to keep men just, to remind them that power is borrowed. Generations later, rulers twisted those same laws to serve greed. They forgot the principle behind the rule. They kept the letter, killed the spirit. Every civilization that forgets its why eventually collapses under the weight of its how. Even art suffers when gratitude dies. A poet who stops feeling awe writes noise. A musician who stops remembering silence creates clutter. A philosopher who stops questioning turns preacher. Creation without gratitude becomes ego in disguise. And you can feel this decay within yourself too. You start waking up later. You stop saying thank you. You scroll instead of reflect. You call rest laziness, growth arrogance, faith naive. Little by little, the muscle of meaning atrophies. Then one day, a new storm hits sickness, loss, failure, and you realize you don't remember how to hold the umbrella anymore. It's still there, maybe in the corner of your life, but your hands have forgotten the grip. That's what forgetting costs. Skill. Not the technical kind, but the spiritual one, the ability to endure. Chanakya, the ancient strategist, warned his kings never to get drunk on success. He said a ruler must visit the slums at least once a month to remember the smell of struggle. Because the moment you stop smelling hardship, you stop governing with empathy. And when empathy dies, power becomes tyranny. The same applies to us. Visit your old wounds sometimes. Touch the scars you've hidden under new clothes. Not to feel pain again, but to remember you healed. Because remembering pain gives value to peace. The cost of forgetting isn't just failure, it's emptiness. Success without gratitude feels like climbing a mountain and finding no view at the top. You expected glory. You found silence. That silence is not peace. It's absence. Absence of purpose. Absence of connection. And the irony? The universe tries to save you from that emptiness by sending more storms. Not out of cruelty, but mercy. It rains again so you might remember the umbrella. So the question isn't whether gratitude dies in all of us, it does eventually. The real question is, do you resurrect it before the next storm? Because every time you forget, life will remind you. And every reminder will cost a little more than the last. The first time, it'll take your comfort. The second, your confidence. The third, someone you love. Not as punishment, but as education. Gratitude is the soul's memory. Without it, you'll repeat the same lessons until humility returns. So look around. Who or what have you left outside because it felt wet? A mentor, a friend, a value, a practice. Pick it up before rust sets in, because one day you'll need it again. And if you can't find it, you'll wish you had treated it better when you did. That's the cost of forgetting. And that cost is always paid in regret. Every story of forgetting has a second half, the story of remembering. And this is where everything changes. Because no matter how far you drift, memory always waits for you to return. But let's be real. Gratitude isn't just saying thank you. It's rebuilding the bridge you once burned. It's dusting off the umbrella, mending its ribs, and choosing to carry it again, this time not out of fear, but respect. How do you do that? Not with affirmations or pretty words. With presence. With proof. Start here. Look at what surrounds you today, the people, the opportunities, even the problems. Then ask a brutal question. What in my life am I taking for granted right now? Not last year. Not in some spiritual sense. Right now. Because the first step toward gratitude is seeing what you've stopped seeing. A Japanese general once asked Miyamoto Musashi how he remained calm before battle. Musashi said, "I rehearse death every morning so that life cannot surprise me." That wasn't morbidity, it was mindfulness. By imagining the loss of what he loved, he sharpened his appreciation for it. That's how gratitude is born again, not by gain, but by remembrance of loss. Try this for yourself. Think of someone you love, then imagine tomorrow they're gone. Your heart sinks. That weight you feel? That's gratitude waking up from its sleep. At work, practice this awareness. Before every meeting, remember a time when you prayed for the kind of problems you have now. Remember the version of you who once wished to be where you are. It turns routine into reverence. In relationships, replace assumptions with attention. Don't wait for birthdays or crises to express value. Say it on a Tuesday. Say it when it's quiet. Because consistency turns gratitude from a moment into a language. And toward yourself, gratitude means forgiving the versions of you that survived storms clumsily. You may hate who you were, but that person held the umbrella while you hid beneath it. You owe them acknowledgement, not shame. Ancient Stoics had a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They visualized losing health, fortune, friends, not to live in fear, but to remain awake to fragility. Seneca wrote, "He who remembers how much he has endured already knows he can endure anything." Gratitude and resilience share the same root, memory. History gives proof. Leonardo da Vinci thanked failure as much as invention. His notebooks are full of half-finished machines, sketches abandoned mid-line, each annotated not with regret, but curiosity. He treated mistakes as teachers, not enemies. That is gratitude in motion. Or Queen Elizabeth I, who, after facing betrayal and imprisonment, ruled with a caution that came from remembering helplessness. She surrounded herself with reminders of her past confinement to stay humble in power. Her gratitude was strategic. It kept her throne balanced between mercy and might. Every time you revisit what almost destroyed you, you reclaim its lesson instead of its pain. That's the reconstruction of gratitude. Here's a modern story. A man loses his job after 15 years. At first, he curses the company, the economy, the system. Months later, he starts a small side project, the thing he always postponed. It grows slowly, but meaningfully. One night, he catches himself saying, "I'm thankful I was forced out." That sentence means transformation is complete. The storm has turned into a teacher. Gratitude isn't passive emotion, it's active alignment. It's how you turn loss into literacy. So rebuild it in layers. 1. Through reflection. Spend 10 minutes each night revisiting the day. Ask, what helped me that I didn't notice? Who showed up quietly? What did I learn that cost me nothing? Write it. Name it. Memory needs ink. 2. Through service. Nothing restores gratitude faster than helping someone who reminds you of your former struggles. When you mentor, donate, or simply listen, you reconnect with the version of you that once needed the same. 3. Through restraint. Stop chasing the next storm just to feel alive. Gratitude thrives in stillness. It teaches you that enough is not mediocrity, it's mastery. And 4. Through ritual. Create a small act that anchors memory. Lighting a candle before work. touching an old photograph, revisiting a childhood place once a year. These rituals train the mind to remember without being forced, because forgetting happens by accident. Remembering must happen on purpose. When gratitude returns, perception changes. You start seeing miracles where others see monotony. A cup of coffee becomes evidence of civilization. A morning walk feels like wealth. Every breath feels borrowed, yet graciously extended. That awareness makes you powerful in a quiet way. The kind of power that doesn't need applause, because it already knows it's alive. And life responds differently to people who remember. They attract trust, not attention. Opportunities flow toward them because gratitude sharpens intuition. It teaches you what to hold and what to release. Socrates once said the unexamined life is not worth living. Gratitude is that examination made gentle. It turns reflection into renewal. You might ask, will it protect me from the next storm? No, but it will keep you calm enough to see through the rain. And maybe that is the real purpose of the umbrella, to remind you that protection is not permanent, but preparation is. So remember the things you've left outside. Pick them up one by one. Dry them, repair them, carry them again. Not because you fear the next storm, but because you've learned to love the shelter that made you who you are. That is the return to gratitude. Not grand, not dramatic, just honest. And in honesty, life begins again. It always comes back. The rain, the sound, the smell of wet earth that reminds you that life never forgets. Only we do. The first drop falls like a knock at the door. Soft, familiar. It doesn't ask permission. It arrives to test what you've remembered. You step outside, and for a moment, the world feels the same as it did last time. Gray sky, slow thunder, the whisper of wind pulling at your clothes. But you are not the same, because this time, you remembered to bring the umbrella. That is the quiet victory of awareness. Not that storms disappear, but that you meet them differently. When you live with awareness, you stop running from the rain. You start listening to it. Each drop becomes a reminder that impermanence is not an enemy. It's the rhythm that keeps the world honest. The sky teaches what every teacher tries to say. Everything repeats until you learn. The rain is repetition with a purpose. It falls again and again, not to drown you, but to see if you've learned to stand without forgetting. Life is built that way. You lose what you ignore. You keep what you carry consciously. So when the rain returns at work, in love, in health, in failure, notice how you react. Do you curse it? Do you panic? Or do you smile, open the umbrella, and whisper, "I was waiting for you"? That's not arrogance. That's mastery. Look at the people who endure history's longest storms. They are not the strongest. They are the most aware. Epictetus lost his freedom, but not his discipline. Cleopatra lost kingdoms, but not her composure. Musashi lost everything material, yet never lost clarity. They understood something simple. The storm cannot steal what you've truly remembered. Awareness turns every loss into a rehearsal for wisdom. It transforms life from a series of crises into a series of confirmations. Each difficulty asks, do you remember what you learned last time? And if you do, the lesson ends. If not, it begins again. This is why some people repeat patterns and call it fate. It's not fate, it's forgetfulness. Awareness breaks that cycle. It makes every repetition meaningful. In practical life, this means you start living slower. You pause before reacting. You listen before speaking. You thank before asking. And somehow, everything starts to align not magically but logically, because awareness is intelligence meeting gratitude. Even small actions change texture. You answer emails with respect instead of speed. You eat with taste instead of distraction. You breathe without waiting for calm. That is presence. And presence is the child of awareness. Think about it. When you were in the last storm, didn't you promise yourself that if you ever made it out, you'd never forget? That you'd never take peace for granted again? Awareness is keeping that promise. Because peace doesn't mean no storms. It means knowing who you are inside them. Sometimes awareness hurts. It exposes your patterns, your laziness, your lies. But that pain is medicine. It's proof you're awake. A numb mind never heals. It just survives. So let the rain sting a little. Let it wash away what shouldn't stay. That's how the soul breathes again. One of the oldest Stoic practices was to step out during rain intentionally, to feel discomfort on purpose, to remind the self that resilience is not learned indoors. Try it once. Stand beneath a light drizzle. Close your eyes. Listen. The world around you is cleansing itself, and so can you. You'll notice something strange. It's not as cold as you imagined, because when fear leaves, discomfort becomes a teacher. That's awareness recognizing that nothing in life is meant purely to hurt you. It's meant to shape you. And the more aware you become, the less you need to control. Because control is a symptom of distrust. Awareness is trust made visible. You start trusting the rain to remind you. You start trusting yourself to remember. You start trusting time to bring everything back exactly when you're ready to face it again. That's when gratitude stops being a reaction and becomes your nature. You thank before receiving. You thank even when losing, because you've learned that both are just different faces of the same teacher. Now imagine this, you're walking through life, umbrella in hand. Not paranoid, not proud, just prepared. And when people ask, why carry it? The sky is clear, you smile and say, because remembering keeps me free. Freedom doesn't come from clear skies. It comes from readiness. It comes from the calm confidence that whatever comes, you will not abandon what keeps you whole. That's what awareness truly is, the art of remembering what matters, even when comfort tempts you to forget. The rain will always return, sometimes as heartbreak, sometimes as loss, sometimes as simple uncertainty that keeps you awake at night. But now, you'll face it differently. Not with panic, not with pride, with awareness, with gratitude. You'll look up, feel the drop on your hand, and whisper, I've seen you before. I know what you're here to teach. And that's the moment life shifts from chaos to conversation. You're no longer running from storms. You're learning from them. You're walking through them. You're living with awareness. So let it rain. Let it wash, let it whisper, let it remind, because the goal was never to stay dry. It was to stay awake. One day it will rain again. Not outside, but inside you. A storm you can't predict. A silence you can't escape. And when it does, everything you once took for granted will come knocking, the people you ignored, the habits you abandoned, the truths you left outside saying, they're wet. That's when you'll realize something. The rain never wanted to punish you. It only wanted to remind you. Because life isn't testing how strong you are, it's testing how awake you are. And awareness isn't born in sunshine. It's born in storms. So the next time the sky darkens, don't run. Don't curse it. Stand there. Breathe. Remember. Because maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end of your storm. It's the beginning of your becoming. Stay awake. Stay grateful. And when the rain returns, smile. Because now, you know why it came.